In this video, we're going to take a look at using SketchUps for kitchen layout and using the CabinetPartsPro extension. In this video, we're going to take a look at laying out a kitchen and then exporting the cabinet components or the cabinets into CabinetPartsPro using the CabinetPartsPro extension library that is used to be able to import these cabinets into CabinetPartsPro. Then we could calculate and nest these parts to be able to prepare them for cutting on our CNC machines. So I've started the process with just a field dimension, and here is the nesting completed. We can see that that job is going to take a total of 14 sheets, and we can see all of the cabinet components laid out on our 4x8 material. So if we will close CabinetPartsPro and focus mainly in SketchUp and just learning how to lay out the cabinet walls and place the CabinetPartsPro's components, which are the cabinets, to be able to use for that import. So this is the kitchen that we're going to duplicate. I started the project using just hand sketch field dimensions of the walls of the house. Going to start off in a new instance of SketchUp. Going to use the camera views to zoom in and view the top. One of those angles is at a 45-degree angle, so I'm going to start with that wall. And to be able to place a wall or a line at a 45-degree angle, we will need to use the protractor tool. Work that around, and it's going to give us a guideline that is at a 45-degree angle. That allows us to be able to use the line tool and snap along that angle. So this is starting out with a 48-inch long wall. So just clicked anywhere on that guideline, and I'm dragging it down, and it's kind of snapping and following along that guideline. I want that to be 48 inches, so I'm just going to type in 48 and then enter. And continue as around. So we are snapping at this point on the red axis, which is the x-axis, and we are going to make this 34 inches. And again, just going to continue right around all of the walls, entering in the dimensions that I have written down on that notepad. So at this point, I am going to escape out of here to close the line tool and start a new line to be able to close this section from this top section of the wall down here. That is up in the y-axis by 46 inches. The last two connectors really aren't critical. We do want that to be a 90-degree angle here because we will eventually delete these lines when we do a push-pull on these, and we'll see that in just a second after we create an offset outwards of 4 inches to create our walls. Going to select the interior here and just remove that. We can add that back in later, but it is useful for being able to select and snap from the bottom side at this point as we're getting started. So I'm going to use the push-pull tool. I'm going to pull it up to 96 inches. And notice that we have these sections that are there. So those are the sections that we could remove at this point. Put those in there just so we could have that. So I'm using the push-pull tool to just push those down to a 0 depth, which removes those. This here is the wall that has the the bar top on it here. It is at a height currently at 96 inches. Again, I'm going to use the push-pull tool to bring that down 55 inches. So that's 55 from that 96, which should give us about a 41-inch wall. We now have our walls laid out to be able to start placing our cabinets on these walls. So I'm going to start by placing cabinets along this wall with the base cabinets, end panel, and then back with the wall cabinets here. So we're going to start off by going into the window and then the 3D warehouse. You will do a search for Cabinet Parts Pro. And we are going to start first by using a single door base cabinet, placing that, downloading it directly into the sketch, using the rotate features, going to rotate that around and snapping it to that red axis. And this is the reason why I removed that floor, just so we could see here to be able to snap from this bottom corner of that cabinet to the back corner of this wall. Now that is not where it's going to stay. I'm just using that as a snap point to make sure that it gets along this wall. I am now going to select this cabinet and start moving it along in this direction. I want to pull it off of that wall by 26.5 inches. So I'm going to enter in 26.5 and then enter. And I'm going to make a duplicate copy of this by holding the Control key down when I select to move and snapping it directly to the right side or left side. I now am going to make room for the range, sliding and locking it in on that green axis, just entering in 30 inches, then enter. We now have 30 inches between this cabinet, but we do need to change the size. So we will use the dynamic components options to be able to change the width of this cabinet. Now notice when I change the width, it's going to kind of shrink from the right side in. So 15 and apply. So since it moved from the right side in, we now have 33 inches between here. So we need to be able to move this cabinet 3 inches in this direction. So as it's snapping that direction, 3, then enter. And now we are back down to our 30-inch spacing. I will now place a tall end panel or maybe a wall cabinet. Let's go with the single door wall cabinet. And we don't need to search again because it brings up the same search from the last time. We're going to use a single door wall cabinet, download it directly into our sketch, rotating it to snap on the red axis, and going to use the snap features to move this cabinet to the top of this base cabinet. And at that point, we're going to take and move it directly up 19 inches. And again, using the dynamic component options, going to change the size of that wall cabinet to 15. And it is just a continuation and kind of doing the same thing as we move along. It gets a little bit easier to place cabinets with the more cabinets that we have in there, a way to get them to snap. So we're going to go with a double door wall cabinet. And this time, before I place it, I'm going to change the size to 30 inches wide and 27 inches high. And going to snap that to the red axis and moving it from the top back corner and snapping it to the cabinet there. I can now make a duplicate cabinet of this one to be at a place to the right side. Actually, it's not this one because we want a double door cabinet over here. So I'm just going to make a duplicate of this one right here. Selecting move, holding the control key down as I make that motion to move it. And I say we are going to need to move up just a little bit. We're not quite up all the way at that 96. I should have moved that up 19.5 inches and not 19. So we could do that by just, again, you could select multiples in a move. And now we are at the top. With using the dynamic component, I'm going to select this cabinet on the left, going to reset the size of this cabinet to be 30 inches wide, but we're going to go back up to 42 inches high. And going to replace that by using the snap points. And going to continue this process right around the corner so we can make another duplicate of this 30 wall, holding the shift key down. And we need to be able to rotate, snapping to the green, the back left, and I'm going to select that and move it off of that wall by 15 inches. And again, holding the control key down as I make a move to make a duplicate of that cabinet there. Going through the same process with the base cabinet. We don't have a double door base cabinet entered in here yet, so we have to go into the 3D warehouse and download a double door base cabinet. And again, we remove that floor just to be able to come in here and make it a little bit easier to snap around. Moving it off of that wall by 27. And now I'm going to create another base cabinet. We could make a duplicate of one that's already in here, or coming into the 3D warehouse and just downloading it again. So this is kind of the basics of drawing. I don't want this to go terribly long. I might finish out this a little bit with some time lapse, going into adding an end panel. I'm going to select this cabinet here because we're just going to make a duplicate of this. To bring that, again, holding the control key down to make a duplicate. Going to change the width to be 36 inches, the height to 24, and the depth to 24. Selecting apply. And give that cabinet its correct location. Selecting this end panel, we need to make a duplicate of that to be on the right side. Just going to zoom in to be able to see that. Again, holding the control key down, making a duplicate. We now have our basic cabinets along the one wall. And at this point, if we had the rest of the kitchen finished, we're able to use our extensions to go into Cabinet Parts Pro. Now, as they were brought in, we see the height is at 30¼ inches. I'm going to go back into SketchUp to learn why that is. If we look at one of the cabinets in the dynamic components, the options for the component options, we will see that this has a detached kick. I'm going to set that option to no. Selecting here, also to a no, and I'm going to change the door hand to a left, which is going to put that knob on the opposite side. Now we will see when we go into the extension and it will open up in Cabinet Parts Pro, we will now see that we have 34½ inch high. All of our wall cabinets, our end panels are listed. All of our cabinet components that we have in our SketchUp model have now been imported into Cabinet Parts Pro. At this point, if we want to nest this and prepare them for our CNC machine, we will click Calculate Parts and Nest. And we can see that they have now been laid out on our 4x8 material or whatever material you have specified in Cabinet Parts Pro. You can now go through the process of saving out the tool paths and getting those prepared for cutting. The appliances and countertops were added after the fact. The appliances, refrigerator, range, and dishwasher, I just grabbed those straight out of the 3D warehouse, just as standard components. The countertops were just drawn lines and then used the push-pull tool on top of that. Hopefully this was useful to getting a understanding of how to lay out cabinets and also how to use the extension. There are separate videos that are a little shorter that don't go into a lot of detail about drawing or designing, really just show how to use that extension. Hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for watching.